I saw before there was a couple of smiles with Hannah Sweets. Just a quick raise of hands if you came across the Hannah Sweets question in the GCSE. All right, cool. So for the rest of you, you're in for a treat. Okay, so this was I think it was 2 years ago, a GCSE exam question, something like that. And it made headlines because it was really difficult, apparently. This is the question. There are n sweets in a bag. 6 of the sweets are orange. The rest of the sweets are yellow. Hannah takes, at random, a sweet from the bag. She eats the sweet. She then takes, at random, another sweet from the bag, and she eats the sweet. All sounds really good so far, right? Lots of just Hannah eating sweets. And then, whoa, the probability that Hannah eats 2 orange sweets is a third. Show that n squared minus n minus 90 equals 0. Where did that come from? You can imagine students in the exam, and well, let's have a look at their reactions. You shall not pass. My mum works for an accountancy company, and it took 4 accountants 2 hours to answer the sweets question. And they have maths degrees. And then my personal favourite, Hannah eats some sweets. Calculate the circumference of Jupiter using your tracing paper and a rusty spoon. Right. And I think this is the reason why it made headlines. It was suddenly a trending topic on Twitter and other social media. That people, like, what were they thinking? They've just made the questions too hard. And it's interesting, just, I guess for students, that's really what it sounds like. Hannah eats some sweets. Now calculate the circumference of Jupiter. What's that got to do with the question? Now, I have recreated the question on Mathspace for us to kind of take and I think we can use this as a bit of a discussion topic, like a little fun discussion topic for rethinking what this question might look like if it wasn't on pen and paper, right? So for all the students, let's see if I can restart this. Okay. So let's put ourselves in the mindset of that student who's sitting in this high stakes exam. It's like the all important exam that determines what your future looks like, whether you end up getting that dream job or end up forever damned to the streets. Well, it's probably not that high stakes, but, and you get this question. Now, obviously if it's on pen and paper, you're just pulling your hair out saying there's nothing I can do. But on Mathspace, if this was the way exams were set, then you're looking at this going, I have no idea, right? So I'm going to use a hint. And the hint tells you that we need to form an expression with the probability, and this is what probability is. And okay, you can have a bit of a think about it. Maybe this helps you, maybe not. For those that it does, great, you've got them on the right track. For those that doesn't, I'm going to use a second hint. Okay, so the probability that Hannah picks an orange sweet on the first go, or the 6 oranges out of n, okay, and then on the second go she picks an orange, so there'd be 5 oranges left out of a total of n minus 1. Hopefully, you know, for those students who are at a level where they can start to understand that, they can actually start to have some success here, and they can put in the 5 over n minus 1 with the scaffolding to get that correct. For some students, it's still going to be too hard, and they're going to skip that step. And when they skip that step, Mathspace will just give them that answer as they go through, right? And so obviously we're thinking about the various levels of students that we're targeting in this question. Right? So now it's not actually even a probability question at all. It's not even a word question at all. It's now just an algebra question. So hopefully some students will be able to pick up and say, well, I know how to do the algebra from here, and then get some marks and for doing that. And we can demonstrate that while they, probably the most important part of the question, the probability side and interpreting the question, they couldn't do that part. They can certainly pick up some marks for doing the algebra correctly. So we can go through, and I'm going to assume that this student does know how to do some of the algebra. Okay, so they got that part right. Now, potentially they don't know how to do the next algebraic manipulation, and then they can ask for a hint. Okay, the hint says cross multiply to give the fractions, and maybe at this point they're like, I do know how to do that. I remember cross multiply, my teacher saying something about cross multiply, and then they can pick up and get that part correct. All right, now when we think about the skill to get to the next part of this question is expanding binomial expressions. Right? We just looked at that. So let's say, hopefully they know how to do that skill. So n squared minus n. Right, and then finally it's just showing, I guess, the answer of n squared minus n minus 9 equals 0. Now, I will note, just like the geometry, if a student said, well, I need to show that n squared minus n minus 9 equals 0, let's just write that step. It would say, you need to show another step before this step. And it'll force them to go through the working out to get there. Okay. All right, the good thing is we can also ask the follow-up question, solve n squared minus n minus 9 equals 0 and find the value n, number of sweets in the bag. Again, same thing. Student might not know how to do this skill of factorization. They can ask for a hint. Hopefully hint triggers their memory. Ask for a second hint. Okay, with the scaffolding, hopefully they can now think of the two numbers that it will take that add to give -1 and multiply to give -90. So hopefully students can start to have some success here. Minus 10 and plus 9. Okay, and fill that up. And again, let's go with the next step. What are the two possible solutions? Okay, and then just to save time, I'm going to hint the next step through it. And this is interesting as well, so when I have these two final answers, x equals minus 9 and n equals 10, a lot of students would stop there, not actually answering the question, which says how many sweets. So it obviously has to be a positive number. So again, if they have stopped there, they can ask for a hint. A hint, only one of the solutions is possible. Ask for a second hint. It represents the number of sweets, so it must be positive. And let's say we get that answer right. Now, if we just think about, just make this a touch smaller, think about the number of skills that are addressed in this single question. And traditional exam is really about right or wrong. You either know this or you don't know how to do this. With e-assessment, with in-the-loop adaptive learning, you basically have the opportunity to say, okay, there's the very first step, we're talking about understanding probability and translating a worded problem. The next step, we're talking about algebraic manipulation through multiplying algebraic fractions. The next step, we're talking about cross-multiplying. The next step, we're talking about expanding binomial expressions. The following step is that recognition that we need to move all terms to one side and equate to 0 for a quadratic. The next step is about factorizing a quadratic. The next step is about identifying that when you have a factorized quadratic, one that equals 0, that one of the factors must multiply to give 0. And then, of course, the final steps there is just to identify the positive solution. There's, I don't know, I think 8 maybe skills that are being addressed in this single question, and our current form for assessment is to say you either know all 8 or you don't know anything at all. And perhaps the way to going forward with assessment is to actually really rethink that and say that there's an opportunity with digital assessment to actually really hone in on what students know, what don't know. And really the grand vision, I think, for what digital learning should be is to remove assessment, remove summative assessment, and really have that formative assessment going through. That we don't have these high-stakes exams because there's really no reason to have high-stakes exams. It's with that mastery-based learning approach, we can actually say this is the content that you need to know. Take as much time as you need to actually learn that all. And that's really what I kind of hope and envisage that will be the future and of something that we can kind of contribute to in the e-learning space for mathematics education, really get rid of that mathematics anxiety, something that certainly at Mathspace is something that we're passionate about and want to continue to improve on. So I am just about on time. It's a good timing. Thank you.